All right, everyone. We're going to start getting ready for worship. If y'all want to stand up and come walk this way. I know y'all usually come up here. I've been here once before. I've seen you guys up front. Come on. Come on. No, you don't? Oh, shoot. I was over here like 2 days ago. Like a week ago. Let's do this. Come on. All right. I know I'm not your usual worship team, but we can still worship and have a good time. All right, guys.
Found in your name the power to save. With only a whisper, mountains shake. Jesus, our hope and strength. You made a way, unlocked these chains. Here in your presence, strongholds break. Freed by the love you gave, and we give you the highest praise. You deserve it all, you deserve it all. We give you the highest praise. You deserve it all, you deserve it all. Merciful King, broken and shamed for all to see. The Father laid down His Son. From darkness to light, death lost to life, heaven and earth will join and sing. Jesus has out, to you belongs the glory. Through every loss or victory, my soul will rise to only bring you glory. With every breath that's in my lungs, my heart cries out, to you to only bring you glory, you glory, 'cause we give you the highest praise. You deserve it all, you deserve it all. We give you the highest praise. deserve it all. You deserve it all. Yeah, we give you the highest praise. You deserve it all. You deserve it all. We give you the highest praise. You deserve it all. You deserve it all. We give you the highest praise. You deserve it all. You deserve it all. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. Let's keep singing that. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath
thank you for tonight. God, it's opportunity we get to worship you and listen to your word. Lord, help us be able to focus on the word as we have a long summer ahead of us. I'm gracious that you give us the freedom to have fun here and worship you freely. Lord, thank you for tonight again, giving us a place to worship you. Amen.
Is it on? It's on? All right. All right. Good evening, y'all. Can you hear me? All right. So I'm going to open up in a word of prayer, and then we'll get started. All right. Dear God, I pray as I get the opportunity to preach your word, Lord, that the words that come out my mouth will be your words, Lord, and not my own. Lord, that if you have your will to affect some lives tonight, Lord, that it will be accomplished, Lord, and that all glory will go to you. In your name, Jesus. Amen. All right, so tonight we're going to look at Luke 18, verses 9 through 14. It's the parable, a lot of you are probably familiar with it, the parable of the tax collector and the Pharisee at the temple. And so we're going to look at this idea of religion versus relationship and how religion kind of takes away and kind of masks our need for God. So we're going to start off and we're going to read the passage. So can I have a volunteer to read? You can read from your Bible or from the screen. Anyone want to read the Bible? Anyone? No one wants to read? Okay, so I'm going to read. Oh, Miss Faith will read. All righty. Thank you, Miss Faith. All right, thank you, Miss Faith. All right, so we're going to break this down into kind of two main points. We're going to look at the two characters that are at play in this story. We're going to start off by looking at the Pharisee and then kind of end with looking at the tax collector. So we're going to start with the Pharisee. All right, so the Pharisee I kind of associated with this idea of religion, how religion is different from relationship. So the Pharisee is going to represent religion and all right, so cultural context. We're going to start with cultural context on a Pharisee. So Pharisees were religious leaders who, within the Jewish culture, they often were considered to have high-class status. And they were kind of like this epitome of the Jewish culture. They were supposed to know the Bible. They're always supposed to be serving God. They always had like these very fancy clothes on. They were very regarded within high regard within the Jewish culture. But reading through if you've ever read through the New Testament, you know that the Pharisees are often portrayed as the bad guys in the New Testament. Throughout, whether it be in parables or an encounter that Jesus has with a Pharisee or another religious leader, they often portray him as a bad guy. So that's got a little bit of a cultural context behind the Pharisee. So we're going to break down the two verses that kind of address the Pharisee. All right, so verse 11. Verse 11 says, there's this line in verse 11 where it says, the Pharisee stood and prayed to himself. My translation says, the Pharisee was standing and praying like this about himself, which I think this is really key in understanding the Pharisee, that his prayer was a narcissistic prayer. There was no confession of sin. It was only self-centered thanksgiving. And so a lot of the translations just kind of talk about how he prayed about himself, but this one translation said that the Pharisee actually stood and prayed to himself, which I think is important because it shows that he wasn't actually caring about praying to God or worshiping God. He only cared about pushing himself up on a pedestal and kind of glorifying his own name. And then we'll jump down to verse 12. So verse 12, let's see, where's verse 12? Verse 12 says, he talks about how he thanks God that he's better than these other people, and then he talks about these good things that he's done. Like he tithes, he fasts twice a week, and this shows that the Pharisee believes his righteousness is based on his own actions. So he's kind of like boasting about these things that he does, and that's how he believes he is righteous or justified before God, that it's his actions that have gotten him there. So if we look, verse 12, it says, it talks about how he fasts twice a week, showing his actions and where his heart is. So I want to talk about religious legalism, or kind of how religion. So often we hear the term religion, we think of like Christianity or Judaism, or these kind of, not culture, but it's a worship of a god or multiple gods. But often we also hear religion as being in the Christian term, as being a worship of rules instead of God. So worshiping maybe all the laws in the Bible over actually worshiping God. So religious legalism exists when people attempt to secure righteousness in God's sight by good works. Legalists believe that they can earn or merit God's approval by performing the requirements of the law. Legalism is not specific to a certain denomination of Christianity. I know a lot of times we see like different denominations that maybe struggle with this issue a little bit more, but it's not specific to a denomination. We could probably even find it within our own spiritual lives, different areas where we fall into a legalistic trap. Examples would be times that we might compare ourselves to others, thinking, at least I don't smoke or do drugs like this person, or at least I don't cuss like this person. And then we end up reading passages like this in Luke 18, and we think that, hey, at least I'm not like the self-righteous Pharisee. And then we end up falling into the same trap that Jesus was warning about in this parable. But I think if we start doing this, we completely miss the point. I think Jesus would give the same warning to Christians nowadays that he was giving in this parable, reminding us that salvation is not found in actions, good deeds, and works, but rather found in forgiveness and the grace of God. Romans 3:23 through 25 tells us that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and that all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came through by Christ Jesus. So we often forget that God doesn't weigh our sin on a scale to see who gets into heaven or who's more righteous. Like, I think we understand that works won't get us into heaven, but I think often we lose that in our mindset. We want to be the most righteous person. We want to serve the most. And it's not that serving is a bad thing. It's that our mindset and our heart behind it is messed up. We often act like looking at other people, looking at other Christians, and weigh ourselves on a scale, saying, oh, I'm more righteous than this person because I serve more, I give more money, I tithe more, I read my Bible more than this person. But we forget that our sin we have all fallen short of the glory of God because we've all sinned, and God doesn't weigh our sin on a scale. A sin of lying is just as bad as a sin of prostitution or adultery. God doesn't hold the sins on different levels. And the truth is, we all deserve to go to hell just as much as a murderer or an adulterer. I think often we forget about that when we look at other people who aren't necessarily Christians. So until we were saved, we were going to hell just like they were. And they have the freedom to come to Christ and go to heaven just as we did. But it's through God's grace that we can go to heaven. Now, this doesn't mean that our sin becomes okay in God's eyes, right? But or that we don't have to follow rules. Because often when we talk about legalism, it's about following rules, and it's a trap that people try to follow rules to get into heaven. So following rules aren't a bad thing. And just because we are seeking a relationship with God doesn't mean we don't have to follow rules. But it does mean our sin is no worse or no better than anyone else. So there's kind of two causes of legalism within the church. So one would stem from trying to work your way into heaven. And then the other would be trying to look holy in the sight of others. So both, no matter how good intentioned they are, So, like, number one, you might think it's got good intentions. You're trying to get into heaven. You're trying to please God. And the other one might seem a little less holy because you're being arrogant. You're pushing yourself up, trying to make yourself look better than others. But the truth is, if you haven't accepted Christ, both of those people are both going to hell. So, but these are the kind of the two stems of legalism within the Christian faith. And Jesus actually gives us a warning against the legalistic Christian. In Matthew 7:21 through 22. Flip there real quick. So he says, in Matthew 7:21 through 22, he says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name, drive out demons in your name, and do many miracles in your name?' Then I will announce to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you lawbreakers.'" And I think this is important because because it's kind of ironic that these people he's talking to, he was talking to religious leaders, the Pharisees again, whose whole life is dedicated to following rules and following the laws of the Old Testament. But Jesus says he doesn't know them and in fact calls them lawbreakers. So these Pharisees who thought they were righteous, who were doing everything they could to get to heaven by following rules, completely missed the point, and Jesus calls them lawbreakers. All right, so now we're going to move on to the tax collector. So it says, "But the tax collector stood at a distance. He wouldn't even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, 'God, have mercy on me, a sinner.' I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." So the tax collector, little cultural context on the tax collector. So the Jews kind of viewed the tax collectors as traitors. They worked for this oppressive Roman rule, and they collected taxes for the Romans, but they'd often take more money than what they were actually supposed to take and pocket that money. So not only were they working for these oppressive Romans, but they were also stealing money, extra money from the Jews. So from the Jews' point of view, a tax collector be one of the least deserving of salvation. And the Pharisee that we saw in the Jewish point of view would be more of the one who is deserving of salvation. But yet we often see throughout the Bible, throughout the New Testament, that it's the tax collector who received salvation, who ended up following Jesus, and not the Pharisee. There were several of Jesus' disciples that were former tax collectors. You had several parables about tax collectors, like this one, and then a couple other stories about tax collectors. And it's often the Pharisees, those who culturally we would think should be most deserving of heaven. The good guys are those who missed what God was trying to say, what God was trying to teach, and ultimately they ended up down the wrong path. All right, so verse 13. The tax collector, differing from the Pharisee, the tax collector actually recognized his own sin, and knowing that righteousness didn't come through his works, he threw himself on the mercy of the Lord. And it's cool to look at this because the tax collector, he knew that he had nothing righteous about him. And so he knew his only way that he could think of was to throw himself at the mercy of the Lord. And he, showing that he understand this idea of a relationship with Christ, that it's not just about following a set of rules, but it's actually about desiring this relationship with God. His prayer isn't one of self-boasting, but he's recognizing his own sin and just begging the Lord for forgiveness. All right, so relationship, the contrast to religion. Relationship is marked by a humble, true admission of shortcomings and longing for Christ and his redemptive love. The one who has a relationship with Christ follows his laws because of conviction and a genuine desire to serve God. So having a true relationship with God doesn't exempt us from following rules and serving God. Quite the opposite. It causes us to want to worship God, thanking him for his mercy and his grace. And one way we do this is through serving, obeying, and following God. But our motivation to do so differs from the legalistic Pharisee. We aren't doing it to win our way to heaven. because we recognize and we realize that no matter what we do, we are undeserving of God's grace. Like, no matter what we do not deserve God's grace. But he gave it to us anyways. So our motivation then becomes to serve God and we want to do good things out of a mindset of thankfulness and a mindset of worship, because we want to worship God and thank him for this grace and this mercy that he gave to us. Because rules aren't necessarily bad. Rules become bad when we start worshiping rules over God. In Matthew 23, Jesus tells the crowd, he's talking to a crowd, and there's about a group of Pharisees, and he tells the crowd to actually do what the Pharisees are telling them to do, to follow the rules, but he tells them do not do what the Pharisees are doing, though. Because the Pharisees missed the point. Jesus was saying the Pharisees were telling you good things to do. They were telling you the right rules, but they weren't acting upon those rules. They were worshiping the rules instead of worshiping God, but they believed they were worshiping God. So they were promoting themselves instead of promoting God, and I think this is one of the issues we face in our Christian walks. We often have a subtle temptation or subtle desire to promote ourselves over God, to lift ourselves up on a pedestal, to look holier than those around us. In doing so, we steal the glory that belongs to God, the glory that he deserves. I think even when we're leading and we're teaching, we always have this subtle desire from the devil to make it all about us, when in reality, it's never about us, but it's all about God. So this is the trap that the Pharisees fell in. They made it all about them taking away God's glory. The Pharisees believed they could get to heaven all on their own, which is very counter to what the Bible says, because the whole New Testament is about how we are not deserving of heaven and how we can't get there on our own, and there's only one way to heaven. But the Pharisees acted out of a mindset of they can get to heaven on their own without God. They thought their works would get them there. And although they were righteous and the people in the eyes of those around them, Jesus didn't regard them as righteous. In fact, he would tell them, "I never knew you. Depart from me, you lawbreakers." But the tax collector, on the other hand, the one who recognized that he couldn't work his way into heaven, he was the one that was justified in God's eyes. So I got a couple reflection questions for this. So you guys can talk in groups. There you go.
Hi. Ooh, there we go. Hello. All right, turn back forward for me. First, let's say a big thank you for Andrew. We've got a host of people helping us as we work through the parables this summer. It's a lot of fun. Ooh, there's a nice buzzing. We need to, mute the keyboard, I believe, and the guitar, so that this buzz doesn't drive me crazy because I'm there. All right. So, yes, Mitchell. No, that is a QR code to take you to the form to sign up. However, tonight, well, I'll come back to that. Tonight, we've made it even easier. So Vacation Bible School is coming up. This year, we're doing it in the morning. We are doing it in July, and we need a lot of help. It does count for service hours, but it's also a lot of fun. But you won't, are you alive, Noah? Okay. If he can talk, he can walk. That's probably not accurate. All right. So, if you sign up to help with Vacation Bible School, you have to do 0 prep work. You have to do 0 homework. All you have to do is show up at 8 in the morning and leave at 12:30 and do exactly what the adult in your clump tells you to do. And just have fun with the kids and love them and point them to Jesus. It's super great. Now, the online form is super helpful, but tonight, to make everybody's life easier, when we are totally done, which is coming soon, we have arranged on this table up at the front sign-up sheets for various age groups. If you would like to help with preschool, or if you prefer first graders, or if you prefer 3rd to 5th grade, you can write your name on that sheet of paper. And that's as good as this QR code form, tonight only. But we do need people to sign up. I know some of you have already signed up, but a lot of you have not, and we need you. We need a lot of people. We are expecting several hundreds of the children's, which means we need lots of helpers. But we also have a lot of other things coming up. This is the moment. For like a year and a half, we've been tired of canceling things. We've had to cancel all the fun things. We've had to reschedule things and then cancel things. But now we get to actually do things. Isn't that fun? Yes, Mitchell. Don't make me cancel you. Okay. So, one of the first things we have coming up, next week we have a mystery event. We'll give you details on Sunday. All of our summer events are inside, so they will still happen. They're active a lot of times, but inside, so they will still happen if it rains. We don't have to have a rain plan. But next week we have a mystery event that we'll tell you more about on Sunday. So be here. If you are a graduating senior, you have a tubing trip with the college students. Noah Booz would love to tell you all about it. It is $25. It leaves at the butt crack of dawn, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Noah Booz can give you the deets. Ha-ha. No, because everybody here is not a graduating senior, but some of them are. All right. So tubing trip is coming soon, seniors. Next up, Monday, July 5th. What? What? 3 burgers? No. It's a taco. No. Yikes, it's almost like the 10th grader can't read. Anyway. We have our second Mo's Monday, the first Monday of July. I know some people will be out of town for 4th of July, but if you're in town, we'd love for you to be there. Bring your own lunch money. It is not free. Not free burgers. It is not free. It costs you money. If you show up with no money, I will stare at you sadly while I eat queso in front of you. All right. The week after that is Vacation Bible School, and the Wednesday of VBS, we do not have first student worship because we have our beach day. We will let you leave Vacation Bible School. We will let you eat at the place of your choice, and then meet back here at 2 o'clock, and we will get on vans, and we will go to the beach, and we'll play at the beach, and we'll have food at the beach and some stuff, and then we'll come back. It'll be super great. Also, after VBS on July 19th, we've got a Mo's Monday. Some of us will be in Portland. And then the last week of July, We're going to do a Top Golf Tuesday. We'll meet at the landing and drive to Tampa together just to make life easier. You can text me to RSVP. First 30 people get the spots. We're capping that one because that's how many people we can put on the vans. It's pretty simple. It is wildly inexpensive, although I think we forgot to set a price. So, but that's coming up at the end of July. And then, those are all the things. Look at that. So one more thing I want to talk about before I declare us to be out tonight. We get one of our first serving opportunities of the summer next Wednesday night. So here's what's going to happen. We will have, you can come at 5:45 next Wednesday. You can play basketball. You can eat pizza. You can eat the Snickers that taste just a little bit like peppermint. He says it like it's a feature. All right. But at 6:15, instead of having our normal first student worship, we are actually going to serve by running the children's ministry program that night. So next week, some of the kids are at camp. So that means all of the kids' leaders are at camp, which means we are going to be the kids' leaders. And here's how that's going to work. You going to be okay there, Gunter? Just making sure. Wanted to make sure you weren't having a seizure. Okay. So here's what's going to happen. We will have a couple people who go up before 6:15 to stand by the slide, help kids get checked in, parents get going, all of that. And then the one and only Brian of Fear Now, the captain of Fear Now Insurance, the driver of the blue truck, the husband of Carly, the owner of Zero Dogs, will, so far. He's going to do a quick devotion with the kiddos, and then we're going to load them up on the church vans and drive them down to the landing. You're like, why are we driving them down to the landing? Have you ever tried to walk a kindergartner across a parking lot? That answers the question. So then we are going to be in 4 stations where we help them play basketball and volleyball and frisbee, and they all get to take a turn, and nobody has to sit still because a kindergartner sitting still is a world disaster waiting to happen. And so everybody who comes next Wednesday night will kind of help run a station. Now, I want to say this while we don't have little ears with us. If you are helping play volleyball, or you are helping lead volleyball, or you are helping lead frisbee, or whatever it is you're helping do, remember you are a helper. You are not a competitor. You are not proving your athletic prowess by stomping on a first grader. That's not what we're doing. We're also not ignoring the first grader and like pointing at them from on high as though you're some sort of Olympic judge. We are participating, but we're doing it in a friendly, helpful, loving way. And some of you are like, well, of course. And some of you are like, no, I'm winning a gold medal at the Summer Games. I don't care if they cry. Care if they cry. Don't make them cry. Don't do it. All right? That's going to be a really... It's a super easy opportunity to serve because it's literally in our backyard, and it's going to be a huge blessing to a lot of families. So still come next week, still have a lot of fun. It's just going to look a touch different than a normal Wednesday, okay? You with me? Some of you who like to come in 15 minutes after we start are going to wonder why little people are running around, and now you know. So that is the thing that's happening next week. April, have I forgotten anything? Brian, have I forgotten anything? Noah, nobody asked you. No, that's not true. I love Noah. Noah is my favorite senior high intern this year. So, no. Fired. I love you, Noah. All right. We love you. Goodbye. Have a great rest of the week.